comrades and friends, and ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank you for this privilege of addressing you on this occasion of your 14th National Congress. Also congratulate you for celebrating the 30th anniversary of the formation of SACTWU and just over a century of activism in the clothing and textile sector. SACTWU traces its history from the days of the Witwatersrand Tailors Association through the Garment Workers Union and various other union formations. The efforts of SACTWU and its predecessor organizations over many years ensured that clothing and textile did not become a neglected sector in our country and in our economy. Your contribution, comrades, to the struggle against oppression was also notable and invaluable. This union, your union, has championed the rights of workers in the apparel and textile sector and also ensured their lasting imprint in the democratic labor dispensation that we enjoy today. Now, as a voice of workers in the clothing, textile, footwear, and leather sector, your union has been engaged at all levels, from the shop floor and bargaining councils in areas such as government procurement, acquisitions and mergers, and it continues to engage robustly with our government and the private sector to improve the conditions of workers and advance their rights. Political struggle and the fight for workers' rights have always been indivisible in this country. There have been two sides of the same coin. You will know and obviously remember that we have always fought side by side for our liberation. In the words of former ANC President Nkosi Albert Luthuli, the ANC is the spear, and SACTWU, the SACTWU of those days before COSATU came into being, is the shield. The alliance, therefore, between the National Liberation Movement, as represented and led by the African National.Congress, the vanguard of the working class, which is the South African Communist Party, and the militant fighting force for the rights of workers, COSATU, is a tried and tested alliance of independent partners fighting side by side for the people of South Africa. We forged our bonds in the trenches of struggle, and this alliance, comrades, still remains the most relevant force for the complete socio-economic liberation of our people. And I stand here to applaud and to recognize and to congratulate SACTWU, that SACTWU has remained faithful and continues to be committed to this struggle for a non-sexist, non-racial, democratic and prosperous South Africa. In that regard, I applaud and congratulate SACTWU for remaining committed to this struggle. Thank you very much for that. Comrades, we must still work together and form compacts against poverty, unemployment, inequality, economic exclusion, and many other ills. we must form these compacts to advance the cause of our country and its people. It is our steadfast focus on these issues, working as a strong united front that will preserve SACTWU and its mother body, COSATU, and continue to position them as the leading fighting force for workers' rights in our country. And comrades, it was for this reason to come and acknowledge this commitment that when the General Secretary kept insisting that I should come to this wonderful Congress, even as I didn't have much time, I felt duty-bound that it is a must for me to come here, to come and spend these few minutes with you. So I am really delighted to see red all over the show, even as I don't have red myself. Thank you very much. But I was quietly promised that I would be given your colors today. So I am ready and willing to do so. And as you know, your president, true to his form, kept on asking me, Mr. President, we saw that with the State of the Nation address, you wore a suit made by the House of Monatic in Cape Town. And he asked me, how many suits do you have now? I said, no, I've now accumulated 4 suits. He said, no, that's too little. We want you to have 20. So I'll go and check my budget whether it can get up to 20, but it is going to get there because they've invited me to come for a fitting. So I'm going for another fitting, and I'll keep accumulating suits that are made by the workers of our country. And thank you very much. Comrades, in the past few weeks, we have experienced unacceptably heightened levels of gender-based violence, attacks, rapes, and killings against the women of our country. We've also experienced attacks on foreign nationals. The women of our country, comrades, are being killed, they are being raped, and they are being brutally violated by South African men, the men who claim that they love the women, that they are violating, raping, and killing. Every day we continue hearing harrowing stories of how the men of our country are brutalizing the women of South Africa. We are not the only country who is struggling against gender-based violence. 2 weeks ago, I saw how France, a country in the advanced economy realm, including Spain, is also reeling from this scourge of gender-based violence. But we as South Africans, we have embraced a constitution that dictates that men and women are equal, that dictates that we must treat each other with respect, that dictates that there must be tolerance, that dictates that we must live side by side without any rancor. So we would want to see ourselves as being different, deeply entrenched in the values and the ethos of our Constitution, but also deeply entrenched in our own traditions. Our traditions as Africans, as the people of this country, are that Men have always respected women. Men have always given due regard to women. It is, in a way, also something strange that men should now be attacking women, because through rape, through violence, and through femicide, it is men raising their hands and attacking women, attacking other human beings. And it is for that reason, comrades, that we say we must bring an end to this scourge. This scourge does not belong here in South Africa, and it must end, and we must end it now. It requires that the men of our country must stand up and say, not in our name. This is going to come to an end. We are going to give due regard to the women of our country. So we condemn in the strongest possible terms the acts of violence perpetrated against the women of our country, but we also must condemn the violence that has been perpetrated against people from other countries. There is no excuse whatsoever for violence. The criminality and the looting that was brought upon the homes and businesses of foreign nationals is something that is totally unacceptable. This nation knows all too well the trauma and the pain that intolerance and discrimination brings, and we will not inflict such trauma on anyone else. Immigrants must not be made into scapegoats, nor must we take our legitimate frustrations with the slow pace of economic and social reform out on immigrants who've come to our country. But of course, South Africans have genuine grievances, and we must do all we can to resolve the grievances that our people have with regard to unemployment, with regard to debilitating levels of poverty, lack of housing, access to quality education, healthcare in a manner that builds our nation. At the same time, we will not allow criminality from anyone, regardless of their nationality, whether they be South Africans or immigrants, or whether they have a particular social standing. And we are saying, when you are here in our country, if you break the law, there must be consequences. We cannot be a country that does not have rule of law. And there shall be rule of law in South Africa, whether people like it or not, it will happen. Now, comrades, it is with this in mind that I want to exhort everyone, all of us, to get engaged in a campaign to fight against gender-based violence and sexual assault. South African women and children live in a state of fear. They even fear walking down our streets. They fear using public transport as well. They have a fear even going to the post office, and particularly there are heartbreaking, often really heart-rending stories of how women have been attacked all around. Now, this is a serious indictment on us as men and in the end as a nation. We will do our part as a government to do better in this regard. We will train the police and equip them to better deal with cases of gender-based violence and sexual assault. We will establish more victim and survivor support facilities, such as Tutuzela care centers and multiply them all around the country so that they do become centers of refuge and centers where women who are in fear, who are battered, but who need a place of safety can go to. We will also strengthen our laws and the whole criminal justice system to make a tangible difference in how cases are prosecuted. On Wednesday, we are going to have a joint sitting of Parliament to discuss precisely this matter, as well as the violence that has been unleashed against foreign nationals. As I leave you here, I'm going to Lusikisiki, where we're going to have a dialogue with the women of the Eastern Cape, because the Eastern Cape has been one area in our country that has experienced quite a lot of cases of gender-based violence. But all this, comrades, will not be enough unless we deal with the issue of patriarchy, this toxic masculinity that men have, where men feel that they are strong, they are masculine, and they are patriarchs, and they want to impose their will and their strength on other human beings, especially women. A society where men feel they can dictate how women behave, how women dress, and where men feel it is their right to control women through physical, psychological, and economic violence, will never eradicate gender-based violence. We now want to raise the level of consciousness amongst us as men that we need to treat our women with respect. Because South Africa, unfortunately, is still a deeply patriarchal society, and we must take active steps to socialize ourselves away from these backward patriarchal attitudes. We must build gender-neutral socialization also into our school curricula. At the same time, we must consistently empower both boys and girls to understand that they are equal. Most importantly, boys and girls must be taught how to resolve conflicts amongst themselves without resorting to violence. We must also, as we do this, remember the stalwarts of our movement, those who have come before us, like Dorothy Nyembe, Johanna Skippers, Mamu Emma Mashinini, Violet Siboni, and many other women veterans. And we should remember them because they were champions of fighting against gender-based violence. And it is when we keep them in our memory that we will seek and try to emulate them. Our priority as a government is to make sure that we stem all these tendencies out. We have a huge task ahead of us, and this past 3 weeks have just raised the specter of gender-based violence to a highest level, as well as the attack on foreign nationals. We must tackle it together as a nation, and we must keep talking about it in every forum. Yesterday I was in a church service in Soweto, Johannesburg, in Gauteng, and in the church they were going beyond praying about this and talking about this. They were actually taking action. Next week Sunday they are embarking on a massive march. They call it the March of Prayer, where they are going to be going around for a number of kilometers, raising the level of consciousness and awareness about this issue. And therefore, comrades, we must, all of us, engage in various activities in various iterations and manifestations to raise the level of awareness. Now I'm delighted that gathered here are shop stewards from various parts of the country. And it is you, the leaders of the working people of our country, in your sector, who can spread the word, who can spread the message through your organization, in your factories, in your communities where you live. We need to raise the level of consciousness about the scourge of gender-based violence, and also that South Africans must desist from resorting to any form of violence when it comes to foreign nationals. We've always lived with people from other nations, side by side, living together, working together, and there's always been cohesion. Now, 2 days ago I was in Zimbabwe, where we were having a memorial for our departed leader of the continent, President Robert Mugabe. And I was asked to speak, and the people of Zimbabwe, almost in unison, expressed their disappointment, expressed their unhappiness, and they expressed their anger against us as South Africans. And they saw me as representing all of us here in South Africa. And their reaction was against us, as the whole stadium, full of some 40,000 people, booed me. And it was only when I said, I regret what has happened in our country, and I apologize. I offered an apology on behalf of all of us as South Africans. And that is when they responded positively in accepting that apology. So I have apologized on your behalf, and I hope it does sink into our consciousness that the world expects us to act in a way where we will respect the rights of people from other nations. It is so because the world has put us, comrades, on a much higher pedestal. They know that we are a nation that has possibly the best constitution in the world, a constitution that enshrines the rights of everyone. But they also know that we have a freedom charter, which we adopted in the 50s, which our forebears have bequeathed to us. A freedom charter that says South Africa belongs to all who live in it, which basically means that we will give respect, recognition, and acceptance to all who live in our country. So when they saw what happening, they were really shocked. They were shocked and they were taken aback. And our image and our standing and our integrity has therefore been negatively affected. We will have to work very hard as South Africans to regain our stature, our position, and in this regard, it was best to just stand up and say we are sorry for what happened. And in having said so, we now need to make sure that it does not happen again. And this is what I told them as well. Comrades, apart from dealing with all these other issues that are current, we are also dealing with another current issue, which is how we go about to grow our economy and create jobs in as many sectors as possible. And it is for this reason that we are continuing our work to stabilize various entities in our country. The one that affects our economy even more sharply is our power supply, but we're also addressing to the financial operation and governance challenges all round. Now, the 3.1% GDP growth during the last quarter is an indication that we can steadily improve our overall economic performance. This requires us to get the fundamentals right for our particular situation and our unique challenges, to engage in good debate and consultation about the appropriate economic policies and strategies that we need to pull us out of the situation that we are in, and that we all pull in the right direction, in the same direction. Comrades Ibrahim Patel and Tulas Nlesi will have elaborated on some of the initiatives that their departments are working on, because they are involved in a number of initiatives in their both areas of responsibility. And also Comrade Blade Nzimande, who would have been here as the Secretary of the South African Communist Party, would also have spoken about some areas that he is responsible for. Now, we have committed, comrades, that we want to grow the sector in which you operate. We have identified the clothing, textile, footwear, and leather sector as a sector that we want to focus on, because we see it as a growth sector. We do not see it as a dying sector. Your sector is a growth sector. And we say so because we want this sector to contribute to the economic and social transformation of our country as well as our continent. Now, the reasons for that are fairly simple and straightforward. We know that this sector has been facing enormous challenges, to a point where a number of companies in your sectors have gone under, they have closed because of competition from other countries in the world. But we, in looking at this sector, we say a new bright future is opening up. We, as part of the African continent, and that is why we need to address the challenges that we have had in the past 2 weeks. We need to address them so that South Africa can occupy its place on the African continent, particularly when we come to the Africa Free Trade Area Agreement, which is going to open up a huge market of 1 billion people on our continent, a market which is $3.3 trillion in terms of the power that it has. We want to open up this market so that our companies can play in, so that the working people in this sector, yourselves, and many more that we want to see employed, should be active participants in this sector. And it is for that reason that I see it as a growth sector, so that you can make all the goods that can be sold into this market. It is important that the clothing, textile, footwear, and leather sector should contribute also to the manufacturing sector segment of the economy, and that it should be improved from the current 3%. We have set ourselves, comrades, of a goal of improving the contribution of the manufacturing sector to the economy, and improving the contribution of the clothing, textile, footwear, and leather sector should aid in achieving our overall goal. To this extent, over the past decade, our government, comrades, has invested much in improving the prospects of your sector through incentivizing it, through increasing production, and also through saving jobs. The Department of Trade and Industry, as well as competition, provided a production and competitive incentive to the local industry, In the last 5 years, 4.1 billion rand has been provided to the industry to support local manufacturers. Now that is quite a nice sum of money. The IDC provided funding to the support of the industry, and 3.2 billion was approved, creating a saving many jobs. In addition, government through the UIF and PIC supported the restructuring of EDCON. Now, government, comrades, working with the banks, with shopping mall owners, supported a 2.7 billion financing package for EDCON. Comrade Patel kept on coming to brief me about these negotiations that were ongoing. And it was touch and go, real touch and go, as he came to me and saying, President, what can we do now? And I said, Comrade Patel, the ultimate objective as far as I'm concerned is to save those 140,000 jobs. Just get it done. And that is what we did. So comrades, I was really particularly pleased when he went out there, negotiated and kept twisting and all that. And finally, the deal was done to save all those jobs. And that for me was the most important thing. Because if we had allowed that deal to fall apart, EDCON would have gone under, we would have lost 140,000 jobs. And I did not want that to happen under any circumstances. Now, as part of the settlement with the Competition Commission, EDCON, South Africa's largest clothing retailer, has also agreed to commitments on local procurement. Other strategies to save jobs include the training layoff scheme, now renamed Temporary Employee Relief Scheme, which reskills the workers, enabling them to be re-employed when ailing companies recover. Incentive schemes, comrades, such as the Production Incentive and Competitiveness Improvement Program, as well as re-establishing production in defunct or ailing factories, are important initiatives that government is supporting. Now, between 2014 and 18, government approved these incentive applications that are worth 4.3 billion, of which 4 billion has already been dispersed. Now, since the inception of the program, 531 companies have applied, and 354 of these companies were small, medium enterprises. And the other industrial policy financing tool, the Competitiveness Improvement Program, has also approved a grant as well. And I did say during SONA and our budget vote that master plans will be developed with business and labor in industries like clothing and textiles, amongst others, so that we can grow these sectors and create jobs for our people. We're encouraged that DTI is currently finalizing the terms of the master plans. Now, I've been pushing that as we look at growing our economy, we should be focusing on sectors of our economy and develop master plans so that we are not all over the place. We focus on each sector of our economy and have a clear plan. And I'm glad that these are now being finalized, and the master plans will contain commitments from all the key players in the sector. So this we are seeking to do, because through that we will be able to look at the full value chain of every sector and be able to know where we should lay emphasis. If government has to support, we should know where it should support. If we have to provide incentives, we should know where to provide incentives. Now, your president, as I was walking in here, was only interested in one thing, and he says, President, the workers who are here are interested in one thing: whether their jobs will be saved and whether their jobs will be secured and whether there will be new jobs to be created in the future. I'm able to tell you, President, that yes, that is precisely what we are focusing on. We want to save current jobs and we want to create more jobs. There is your answer. This is what we are committed to as the government of the Republic of South Africa. Now, comrades, we are going to use a variety of strategies and initiatives to do precisely that. Now, this I want to stress because we are not just leaving you in the lurch as working people in the economy of our country. We're not just going on and say you will see for yourselves. We want an activist government. In fact, I say we want to be an entrepreneurial government that is directly involved in every sector of our economy, either as a regulator, as an encourager, where we encourage, where we initiate certain projects and get them going, and an active participant, where we do not just sit on the sidelines and see things going on and some of them going wrong. And we have identified a number of these initiatives. One of those, comrades, is public procurement, which in our view is an important contributor to industrialization in our economy. We reiterate our call with regard to the importance of buying locally produced merchandise, including clothing and textile products, so that we can boost our industries and create and sustain jobs. If government buys locally made goods, local production will increase and jobs will not only be saved, they will also be created. So I'm on a big drive to say in government, local is lekker. We must buy local. Because there is no need for us to go and create jobs in other countries whilst our own countrymen and women do not have jobs. So we're putting pressure that buy local, and at government level we say we must buy local. When we come to uniforms, there must be uniforms that are made here in South Africa. Now, we've identified and designated 23 sectors or products that had been designated for local production with varying minimum local content thresholds. One of the first sectors designated was clearly the clothing, textile, footwear, and leather industry, with government prescribing that such products should have 100% local content. In other words, 100% manufactured here in Mzansi, here in South Africa. Now, your sector is labor intensive with considerable multiplier effects which can make a significant contribution to our economic growth. We are encouraging, as I said, all departments as well as institutions to buy local, yes, and we would like tenders for footwear in government, uniforms, the airlines and various other sectors to go to local businesses where you work, and ideally women and youth-led businesses. We will be more vigilant in enforcing these regulations relating to local procurement. At times we have not been as vigilant as we should be, and we are now going to be more vigilant because we are getting cleverer and wiser by the day as an entrepreneurial state. And we will put our full weight behind efforts such as Proudly South African by encouraging retailers to stock more locally made products from local manufacturers. Another concern is the impact of Chinese imports, both legal and illegal, in our economy. We've raised these with the Chinese authorities and at some point had quotas over some of these imports. Now, the Trade and Industry Minister has met with both the Chinese ambassador and the Vice Minister of Trade to discuss illegal and illicit imports of goods from China to ensure that goods imported are not under-invoiced. And this is where the issue of the rule of law applies. Because when we allow illicit goods to come in, it undermines you, it undercuts you, and it also destroys your jobs. Now we want to be more alert and make sure that this does not happen. In October last year, we held a presidential job summit. Several key agreements were reached between labor, business, and communities and government on things such as customs fraud and SARS efforts to fight illicit imports, including the re-establishment of investigative and enforcement capacity and the end-to-end investigation of imports and distribution chains and networks. SARS has also established an illicit economy unit focusing more specifically on high-risk sectors such as fuel, cigarettes, and other clothing, textile, footwear, and leather industry products. The Revenue Service has established a task team which is going to focus on this. As a result, now SARS has conducted a number of raids and has confiscated more illegally imported goods recently. And customs officials are intercepting hundreds of millions of goods that are brought in clothing and a whole lot of others. Now, between July and September, for instance, SARS conducted about 2,500 raids for counterfeit illegally imported goods. The estimated value of all these goods amounts to well over R1 billion, and a number of them were in clothing, textile, footwear, as well as leather. Now, we are focusing, as I was saying, on a number of initiatives. Some are clearly direct initiatives and some are to protect your industry. As you discuss the various issues during this Congress, keep in mind that it is our collective duty to also improve the skills of our workforce and allow them to continue working in an increasingly digitized world. The world of the fourth industrial revolution, comrades, is here. And our task, and your task as a union president, is to make sure that the workers in this sector are prepared for the changes that the fourth industrial revolution is going to yield. And our members, your members, must now be getting ready to be reskilled, to be upskilled, and to be given options and possibilities to move ahead, because technological advances have a disruptive impact on the world of work, and we must equip industries such as the clothing, textile, and footwear and leather industry, and make sure that workers are able to deal with the challenges and opportunities that are offered by digitization. We need to ensure that labor relations also in your sector is so well streamlined as to be able to deal with this issue. The one issue I've always raised, which COSATU unions are afraid of, and I've raised it repeatedly, and I say, we're operating in the new era, comrades. The time has now come for workers to be in the boardroom, of the companies that they work for. We should not be afraid to go and sit there with the bosses to determine where our companies are going to. Now, many of your leaders have always been afraid They've been afraid, they think that they are going to be contaminated. And I say, comrades, you should take the struggle where you know that the struggle should go. Get into the boardroom, look at the company plans, look at the finances more closely, and see how best to advance the interests of the workers. In other economies, for instance in Germany, militant trade unions sit on the boards of the companies that they work for. And when they negotiate, they never get into a conflict situation. They negotiate, they even go on strikes. But at the same time, they are much more informed, they are much more attuned to the direction in which their companies are going to. And I'm encouraging you as workers not to be afraid to take this step. I have seen it work extremely well for others. So both sides, comrades, workers and employers, have to work hard to meet each other halfway and to appreciate where each is coming from. And the workers will always be seeking to advance the interests of the workers in general. Comrades, I want to conclude by briefly saying, we are in a strategic alliance that seeks to build a united, non-racial, non-sexist, and democratic and prosperous South Africa. And this, between your organization, COSATU, and its strategic partner or alliance partner, as in the governing party, has been able to work well together. We produced the manifesto together, and in this manifesto we've been able to identify areas that we need to focus on. How we can transform the economy, how we can make sure that this economy will grow in a sustainable manner, but also how we also address other issues such as land reform, such as ensuring that we broaden the ownership of the economy so that those who have been excluded from the economy should continue playing a key role in the economy of our country. And how we address monopolies, because we are the one country where monopolies have always had a stranglehold and a tight control on the economy of our country. In our manifesto, your manifesto, you deal precisely with those issues, and those are issues that we are going to be addressing. Because, for instance, the presence of monopolies in our economy are growth inhibiting. Because they inhibit the growth, we are not able to have many players in the economy of our country as to be able to ensure that there's more employment and more growth. And we also need to drive innovation, to participate in this digital revolution that I was talking about. Now, there are quite a number of interventions that we are going to be embarking on, but the other important one is just social transformation. We want to focus on social transformation, on education, on the health sector, and on improving the lives of our people, building more homes, a more modern and integrated and accessible and reliable transport system. We know that as workers in our economy, you spend up to 40% of your income on transport. We know that you pay a lot of money to get to work. We now need to transform our transport sector so that we have a reliable and affordable transport system. And we are also, as you know, comrades, working towards a comprehensive social security system to protect the well-being of the people of our country and society in general. Now, our manifesto focuses on keeping our communities safe and ensuring that there is security in our streets, in our homes, in the schools where our children go to, but also on our borders. This includes our fight against all manner of criminality, and particularly drugs and gangsterism. the proliferation of drugs in our country has reached frightening proportions. Wherever you go, you find that drugs are being peddled, and the children, the young people of our country are susceptible to this. Now, one other important thing as I conclude is to rebuild and renew a capable developmental state by reorganizing the way government works and interacts with the people of our country. And that is why we've now adopted what we call the district development model, which we are launching tomorrow in the Eastern Cape in the OR Tambo district, where we are now seeking to focus government initiative attention, including a number of other role players, on districts in our country, where we will have, wall-to-wall initiatives that will lead to the improvements of the lives of our people during the life of this administration. And obviously, comrades, we want to advance nation building and social cohesion, and we will be ensuring that we deal with all the challenges like those I mentioned initially. But in the end, we want to build a better Africa and a better world. Now, this manifesto is what we are now implementing in our government system, sets out how we will improve the lives of South Africans and grow South Africa together. Your president, as I was coming in, was saying, we want to know what plans government has to improve the lives of the workers in this sector, to advance their working conditions, to also protect their jobs, and also to create more jobs. Now, comrades, this we will only be able to do if we work hand in hand, if we work together. You should not expect that government will do this alone. You should not be looking at government and say, what is the government going to do for us as textile workers? We should be saying, what is it that our union will do to participate in this ongoing process of transforming our country? Right now, we are involved in the process of repositioning our state and ensuring that the wrong things that were done in the past few years are corrected, and that we deal with challenges such as corruption. As you know, corruption had set itself deep into the structures of our government, but not only in government, but also in the private sector. And we continue to say, comrades, we are going to deal with corruption quite ruthlessly. We are going to make sure that we root out corruption from South Africa and reposition our country. And we hope that, yes, because corruption takes money from the poor people of our country, and we hope that SACTWU will become a partner with us in making sure that this is achieved. So, comrades, let us pull together and grow our country together. Let us work together and make sure that even those who are trying to fight back, because there is some fight back campaign that is underway, even those who are fighting back are in the end defeated, because the course that we have taken is the correct course that is going to reposition our country. So let's work together, and SACTWU has always been on the right side of history. SACTWU has always been in the forefront of the struggle, and I say let's join this struggle together and build our country and grow our country together. Amandla! Amandla! Viva SACTWU, viva! Thank you, comrades.